Ready whenever.
Hello, and welcome back to the Review Crew, where we do a mixture of recent album reviews, discography tier lists, topical music discussions, debates, and more. Our episode today is entitled, it's a topic that we're going to discuss. The topic is, how does your musical taste evolve over time? Now, I'm Dennis.
Hi, I'm Addy.
I'm Jack.
We're the crew. So this was prompted from a couple of articles that I stumbled across. One was from Business Insider, the other was from the New York Times, sort of discussing around this topic. The Business Insider one was sort of presenting the results from a survey that Deezer had done of 1,000 people. And what they discovered was that the most respondents discovered the most new tracks and new artists when they were around 24 years of age. So the conclusion was roughly 24 is about your peak for discovering new music and new artists. Contrastly, I'm not sure if that's a word, but to contrast that, the New York Times also did it's an iffy sort of study, but it's a study that came from Spotify data, where this one individual looked at the ages of the demographic today that are listening to certain songs and the age that they were when those songs came out. And what they discovered was that for the women of a certain that are aged 35 years old now are the biggest listeners of songs that came out when they were 11 years old. Similarly, women that were 41 years old now are the same, listened the most to songs that came out when they were 11, and same for women aged 38. And the same pattern repeats for men. But at this case, the most popular listeners of songs today would have been 18 when those songs came out. So this is sort of suggesting that for women, their peak for discovering songs is 11, and for men, their peak for like loving songs is 18. So you got these sort of ages that these two articles are sort of saying that. This one is saying 24 in general for new music. This one is saying 11 and 18 for when your musical taste will be sort of settled on. So we thought this would be something worth discussing, in particular because one thing I wonder about, and I'll bring you guys in a second because I'm aware this has been a very long sort of blurb introduction, but I always wonder if I'm writing off certain genres just because when I was 16, 17, 18, I listened to certain genres, and now I'm going to be less inclined to go to different genres. So,
well, you would view that as like, oh, that's a younger person's genre, like that's a teenage specific genre. Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is, like, for instance, am I writing off certain pop music, for instance, just because I listen to certain genres when when I was 16, I was listening to hip hop, rock and metal, blues. So am I writing off, say, pop music? Am I writing off sort of punk because I didn't explore those genres? How do you think your music taste has evolved over time? Have you found that you've delved into newer genres as you've gotten older?
Yeah, I would say personally, looking at this study, I think a lot of it's bullshit, at least in the context of applying it to me. But I would say, well, I guess as we would all, I suppose we would all class ourselves as like, above the norm in terms of like, I don't know, musical consumers. I would definitely say, a lot of, my life revolves around music. Obviously, it's going to be same as Jack.
Yeah,
imagine,
bit bit of a humble brag there, but okay.
No. But all I mean is, I can picture the average person that I would speak to would enjoy music a lot more casually than someone like me that would get obsessed over it. It's not necessarily a brag. It's just that it would be like a hobby and a passion for me.
I see what you mean in that I have sort of met people who who view sort of the approach to music sort of different to me in that they're happy. I've never been happy listening to individual songs. If I like a song, I'm getting that album. And not everybody sort of holds that belief.
Yeah, I mean the one thing that was interesting, I believe it was the Deezer. So two things. So first thing I would say in terms of the question of did I kind of confine myself to like the genres that I liked as a teenager? Was that the end? I would say is absolute rubbish. I found it would, as I've gone on, even to this day, I would still enjoy listening to other genres and new things, or like broadening my horizon. Now, one thing that I would say is probably accurate was the Deezer study. So, like I said, just reading it, a study on 1,000 people that seemed to determine that the peak age for discovering new music was 24, I believe 24 years old. And then it says factors that caused that to decrease by the time people got to their 30s was having too much choice, like option paralysis almost, having like a more demanding job, or like caring for children. I mean, that rings a bell. I mean, I wouldn't say I would fit into those categories, but I would definitely imagine that the time in my life that I was searching for the most amount of stuff would be around 24. Now I'm 28, even though I'm still receptive to different genres and listening to new stuff that's going to surprise me, I wouldn't say I consume as much music now as I did 4 years ago. So I would say that study specifically kind of mirrors what I would say describes me. But the one saying that you get locked into what you like as a teenager, I would say is rubbish, because a lot that I listened to when I was a teenager, I don't listen to now, and vice versa. So I
think I'm the same in that I've actually made efforts. For instance, I made an effort a couple of years ago to get into like house music. And the route that I took is I watched a couple of documentaries. I asked for advice from certain people of like where to go. And the way that you get new music from different genres isn't the same. So, for instance, with house music, it's better to sort of get new music from, say, like mixes.
A mix, yeah. You're not really going to listen to an album.
Yeah.
Get into like any form of dance. Well, most forms of dance music, I would say.
Well, let's bring Jack into this discussion. Yeah. Have you made sort of an effort in the last few years, do you think, at getting into certain genres that you didn't really get into when you were 16?
I think that, first of all, I think most of the information that came out of the study for the initial one, for like where our favorite song for life is picked from, is way too subjective to draw any meaningful conclusion from. Because most of the songs that came out when I was thinking for boys, it was 13, was it?
Well, in terms of sort of popular songs that are being listened to the most now,
isn't it 18?
11 for women, 18 for men.
Yeah, that's a big difference as well. Big difference.
Oh, that's the musical preference. Yeah, so I think like probably the songs that came out when I was 18, I like as much as the songs that I've been played by people that were way older than me when I was a kid. Because like a lot of the music that I listened to through family members and older like family friends, when I was a kid, I really loved, and I became a snotty teenager, got my own tastes and hated all of it, and I've now like circled back around to having that more diverse influence again.
So what kind of artists would you say you went around that loop for?
Well, stuff like country and folk, the more like classic British blues, like pre-blues rock sort of stuff.
Pre-Rolling Stones? Or is it that sort of era, bands coming out of Ealing?
They're probably like at the start of it, yeah. Or sorry, at the end of it, the start of them.
Just to find out where you guys situate on the one saying that the kind of peak age for discovering music in terms of maybe consuming the most, would you guys both agree that it would have been 24 for you, or was it before, after? Just because, like I said, that's definitely the one that I found would be most accurate to me.
Yeah, I think that would be accurate to me. Like you said, life got in the way a little bit.
Yeah,
I think you can consider anytime that I was sixth form to uni. So I wouldn't say is like I couldn't pick a 1 year grade,
right.
1 year gap to be like that's when I picked up the most music.
Right. Well, let's say early 20s versus late 20s then.
I'd say like 18 to 24.
Mm.
So if they're taking that as the peak year, because it's like
that you check at a government survey.
but like because you're around the most people, you have the most free time.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of your income is disposable, or it's a student loan, so
yes,
you don't have proper concepts of having to save for things at the time.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. Early 20s, the majority of people, well, not necessarily the majority, but like say us and like the people we know would have been at uni, with like an abundance of free time. And no or little commitments,
and just loads and loads of people that want to share who they are and what their influences are, and they want to like connect with other similar people, and it's not I don't know, it's not like a clout thing, but it's something I found at uni is everyone wanted to they wanted to give you that really quick snapshot of who they are. And when they found out I was on a music course, often people would like tell me their musical taste and their favorite band, and they saw this person recently, and this person's playing at a club on the weekend, and all this sort of stuff.
So you circle back around to sort of country music, well, early blues music.
I'll tell you the big one. It's he's had some stranger moments, some kind of Confederacy things. But then, from what I can tell, it's a hell of a lot of Southern American country artists.
We're in controversial corner right now, guys.
But Steve Earle, the album The Mountain specifically, 1999, I remember being played when I was 8 and onwards. I then stopped listening and then came back from uni, heard it again. It's just an incredible album. Also, the band that he recorded with, the Del McCoury band, just incredible to watch on. I've not listened to their albums, but listening to them on YouTube now, it's fantastic, which I definitely would not have done when I was a 14, 15-year-old punk going down skate park and hanging out under car parks.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean on that point. Now that you clarified it more, it's definitely kind of, I guess, when you're in the situation where you're at uni and you're kind of, I guess, in that bubble, like kind of, I definitely say, like, say for example, like, with similar to what Dennis is saying, with like house and like dance music. When I was in uni, that would have been more of a focus of what I was listening to, just because I'd be in the situation where we'd go out, or I'd go out with my friends, and there'd be that type of music around. And now that I'm not in that environment, it does allow time to kind of discover stuff that, I guess you would say is like more music that you would enjoy on your own. Does that make sense? Like I wouldn't necessarily like sit at home and listen to a lot of electronic music. But now that kind of spend kind of more time on my own, especially in 2020, it kind of just want something to kind of vibe to with headphones, as opposed to something that's going to get you like pumped for like going out or whatever.
Weirdly enough, I would say like no, I still listen to quite a lot of new music now, but more often now it's because I know that next term I'm going to teach Indian classical music, so I need to listen to some of it and get my head around it, or I'm going to teach Chinese pentatonic music. So like I'm still finding new music, but I'm definitely not listening to stuff that's like as following a rabbit hole down a particular genre or anything anymore. Like I'm not discovering a new artist and then I'm going back through their discography as often as I would have done when I was in school.
It's not being governed by like personal enjoyment as like the sole reason.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more methodical? Your sort of this route, and the reason why I want to say that is because I don't know. It sounds like, well, I don't know about you guys, but my sort of route for discovering music was very much I cut my own path. You know, there wasn't like a listen to this and appreciate it this way, listen to this and appreciate it this way. I don't know. You guys have sort of more of a formal music training, but do you find as though going down this route of discovering music in this different way gives you sort of like a deeper understanding of that genre and like music in general?
I feel like there's different stages to it. I think like depending on how much, there's so many factors. I think like if it's something like a new type of metal or a new type of or even guitar music in general, anything like that, I feel like the first listen is way more analytical because I'm a guitarist than it would be if for so like I listen to quite a lot of like classical music and baroque music and stuff now, but I can't analyze it in the same way because I don't play classical or orchestral instruments. So I like if I do want to have that kind of methodical processing of it, I need to sit down and spend the time to do it. But then if it's something like if it is like the most recent Jason Becker album, actually, listening to that, the first part of my brain that hears it is the guitar playing part of my brain, and it's instantly analyzing it and breaking it down and like assessing the value of it from that first second of listening.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to say on that point, I mean, I think I found it kind of easier as I've gotten older to kind of listen to something for the pure enjoyment and not needing to analyze it. I'd probably say like when I was younger, a lot of my like tastes were governed by like, listening to music, going in with that kind of critical like analysis from like, like producing music and playing guitar and being like, what can I dig out of this? And if I couldn't dig much, I would be against it. But now, while I can still do that with the right genres, like Jack mentioned, now I think I'm a lot more open to just listening to a song and being like, I like this. I don't necessarily know why, but that's cool. It's just pleasant, and I'm not kind of prejudging it.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to that sort of like that enjoyment without understanding why you enjoy it. Which is I don't know. I guess it's probably even using like a different part of your brain. It's not that analytical side of your brain.
Yes.
It's just like seeing the full picture rather than tearing it down into. Sorry about that. That's going to be awful for the audio.
Yeah, and I think that's more of like, I guess, like a normal, like say someone that doesn't like play music. That's going to be more of the normal approach. They're not going to necessarily know why. It's just going to trigger the serotonin in their brain. So I think it's kind of like letting yourself absorb it in that way. And it's not. It's like I said. It's not going to be the same. It's going to depend on the artist or genre in which you're either going to like it from an analytical aspect or like it from pure, indescribable enjoyment. I mean, it's impossible to never get the analytical element out of there for me. But it's not like a prerequisite that I have to like analyze this and determine it's good because of this, and these elements. That will come later if I want to.
Yeah, because me not creating music as much as you guys have, I don't have that part of my brain firing when I'm like listening to music. So, but I have recently started making this playlist. What it is, it's just like a playlist of those tunes that like make your hair stand up on end.
Right. Yeah. The goosebump.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like there are certain songs which are like this playlist has songs from all. So I've got like say, "Good Life" by Inner City in there. You guys have heard that. Let me take you to the place I know you never heard. It's the good life. It's got that sweet house beat to it. Yeah. So it's got like that kind of music. It's also got like Toxicity by System of a Down. wildly different genres, but
Yeah.
there's something about these songs where it feels like they just
It's-
captured lightning in a bottle.
It's a crazy feeling though, because I don't know if you would agree, Jack, but yeah, when you do get those songs that do give you goosebumps, that's when all the analytical, like at least critical thing goes out the window. When a song does hit that level, it's almost that you can't describe what it is if it affects you to such an emotional degree. And that's one of like the best things about music. I find it's rare that there's another like art form or whatever that would trigger that emotion.
And a lot of the times, this is me putting my slight analytical hat on. A lot of the times, you'll find that they've broken certain rules of music making, in that they've just randomly used like a chromatic scale somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I said, you're going to have that attunement to the same melodies or harmonies. So much music is based around the same chord progression. So yeah, when something goes against the rules of music theory, again, just from like a musician aspect, whether you play music or not, your brain is going to hear that abnormal thing. You're not going to be thinking, oh, he played that chord and it wasn't diatonic. That's a borrowed chord from a different key. That's not what you're going to think of. But your brain is still going to say, that's weird. I haven't heard that often, and then that could be the thing that would trigger the goosebump feeling, something out of the norm. A technique that isn't kind of in line with what you would hear in like most mainstream music.
I think that's also an element of kind of growing up with music, because I know from knowing you guys for a long time that probably a lot of our music tastes during our teen years were actually like quite complex musical workings from musicians that are doing things like that. They're bending the rules, they're reaching virtuoso levels of instrument playing. Because I know like we've all I'm immediately thinking like fucking Dream Theater and stuff. I know that we're all into.
Shout out to Protest the Hero, mathcore.
Yeah. Well, that's weird time signatures like Tool, all this sort of stuff we'd listen to as teenagers. From the conversations that we have now, I feel like that's definitely something that we're still into, but we're less driven to seek that sort of stuff out.
But that's exactly what I meant. Like now, enjoying music for the sake of enjoying it without.
Yeah. Do you think though? Do you think that's because when we were teenagers, we were less capable is a bit of an iffy word to use for it, but we didn't have the experience of ourselves and of the life that we've lived with music now, so we didn't have the capability at the time to analyze it and to like decompartmentalize the music. It looks
like this wondrous thing.
Yeah,
you're like
so
looking
it's got that kind of otherworldliness to it, because we couldn't get that information that our brain wanted from it. We just knew it was good somehow.
Yeah.
And then now we have the skills to do that more readily. We're less driven to try and test it.
You see,
I know what you're saying. I don't think that's the like driver for like maybe not, approaching that as approaching things with a critical degree or liking as much technical music. I don't think the reason is that say for me and you, our like technical level would have increased, but don't know. I think I'd have to think of it. There's got to be a reason, right? But I don't know if it's that. That's an interesting point that you raise.
I see where Jack's coming from, though, because like when you, for example, when you first heard, say, Tool, let me think of like a certain song. I want to say sort of Lateralis or something like that. The intro for that has this like weird thing with like black and
the Fibonacci sequence.
And it's like it's got a weird. I think it's got an odd time signature anyway, and then it's like it's syncopating it. It's syncopating it in this Fibonacci sequence. Like when you first heard that, that's the first time that you ever heard it. But now that that's in your brain, now that you've got that, if you hear that again in like some other song, you can be like, oh, this sounds like that. It's like it's not like this crazy amazing thing.
But I think part of the pleasure was being able to work that out. Say part of the pleasure. I think with say with something like Tool or something like that, there has to still be the original element of I like the way this sounds upon first listen, right, to get you to listen to it again. But then on the repeated listens, that's when you might deconstruct it. But I think for me, part of the enjoyment with looking at like technical music, at least when I was younger, was kind of being like, oh yeah, I understand why that's in this time signature. I know what they're doing to kind of have that effect. It's kind of like it's like solving like a maths puzzle. That you're getting like a little rush from doing that. I don't think it was. I guess my disagreement is I'm not kind of like saying like, oh, this is so technical. I don't understand it, and that's what makes it cool because I can't even approach it. I was trying to figure it out.
Is that what Jack was saying there? Because what I took from what Jack was saying was these things took on like a transcendental sort of aura about them because they were putting together loads of elements, sort of complex elements and unconventional elements that we'd never seen before.
Like it's a new thing when you're young. I guess so. I guess when you frame it like that, it does make sense, and you're kind of like you're always looking for something that's even weirder or more complex. I would definitely say I would have gone up and up and up. But then now I'm thinking what was the point where that kind of stopped, and I was like I'm not now seeking something more technical. I'm just looking for things here, there, and everywhere kind of thing. I'm trying to think what triggered that change. I mean, it might have even been again just coming back to like going to uni and kind of I guess being forced to socialize with people that had lots of varying things. Because I think from the experience of growing up in school, with you guys and that, we were all into like fairly like technical music. We would have had other things, but the main driver for us would have been like rock and metal, right? And that's naturally you're going to like be in that bubble and then look for the craziest thing. Because I definitely know when I was a kid, I can remember being like thinking like, oh yeah, we all like the same similar stuff, but I like the best stuff because this is the most technical stuff. And I definitely had moments where I thought I had like the best taste of people that had similar tastes. But I think I guess being forced into an environment where I go to uni and like I have to make new friends, and the friendships aren't governed by what we all like. It's like, oh, I've got this friend that's into this style, this friend that's in that style. It's kind of like I've got no outlet to make someone say or get like my mate to be like, oh, listen to how technical this is. It's got to be, there's give and takes. What do you like? Oh, okay. And then that way I'm exposed to more simpler things or things that don't rely on a huge technical aspect. And that's when the kind of your taste blows up. So, this is almost like a realization I'm having now through this conversation. I don't know if you guys would say that you would have had similar things, but kind of
I think comparing or bringing together what you're saying about your taste kind of being widened at uni with what we were talking about earlier with the impacts of life after uni, the study finding that the impacts of life after uni means that people seek out or have less time to seek out new music. I think the kind of combination of those two things, because like you're saying, back in the day you wanted to work out the complex music. It was like a puzzle, and you'd get the serotonin from understanding the thing that you didn't understand before that. Whereas now you almost, well, I know definitely I never have enough time to listen to all the music that I want to and really like explore the stuff that I want to get done, as well as doing my job and doing my prep for my job and learning like instrument and having time to relax and watch stuff and all this sort of stuff, as well as all that. So I know that
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to give me 1 minute.
Cool. Yeah, so I think like there's an argument to be made for that quicker, that easier to access serotonin release is something that you're gonna seek when you reach a point in your life where you don't have the time to dedicate yourself to learning an album once it comes out.
Yeah, so you're not going towards something that's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time to like sink your teeth into, because you just don't have that time and that effort. You're going to go for something that's a little bit more accessible, that you can still get the same result from.
Or if you are, you're not plowing ahead with breaking this problem down. It's something that, maybe cyclically comes back up around every time, but then your space in between is the easier to access stuff. It's the stuff that you listen to when you're a kid, so you've already unlocked the kind of secrets of it. You already know it. I think that's probably quite an impact, because with stuff like Spotify now, because I've moved around a lot between what streaming service I've used, and you can't obviously take your playlists and stuff with you. So there's a ton of stuff that I'm missing now I've moved to Spotify. Like, I've not felt compelled to go and seek out my favorite tracks that I listened to when I was 13 to 18, according to the study, and add them to my Spotify account. Like, I'm pretty happy just what I remember, when I remember, it'll get added and chucked on. So I think there's a lot of I think there'll be a lot of skew towards people that have joined one streaming service. They've remembered something from that time period, and what they're going to remember are the hits, and then they'll chuck that out on a playlist.
There's also the kind of the nostalgia, or almost like rose tinted glasses feeling of, say, if you hear a song that you really liked when you were young, it will then instantly trigger a memory, and it's might not necessarily be that you still enjoy the song, it's just reminding you of a time. It's capturing a moment, or it gives you memories that you wouldn't be able to reaccess. I would say I still get that. I'll on the odd occasion hear a song that I heard in like my first year of uni and rinsed. And like I said, I'm not going to listen to it today normally, but when it comes on, I'm like, oh shit, I remember what, it's like I'm back there for a moment. So that kind of makes sense why people would gravitate or say, oh, that's my favorite song, because it's capturing like a moment in time.
I think we got that firsthand when we were doing the system tier list. So, Jack, how are we doing for time, by the way?
That's about the half-hour mark.
All right, I know. This is a huge topic, and I'm sure we can keep talking about this. Until the cows come home, basically. But I did just have sort of one question for both of you. I'll throw it at you, Jack, first. Is there like a genre or a new band that you've made an effort to listen to recently, post 24, that is so far outside of what you would have listened to? I'll give you an example. I think I was watching a Vice documentary. It was a documentary about the guy that built an LSD factory out of a missile silo somewhere in America somewhere. It's with the chick from Neurosoup, and talking about this guy rich guy who made his money in the .com boom and then made like an LSD factory. Apparently, so what he did, he bought like he bought like a missile silo, an old missile silo. So there were like all these tunnels underground, and then he hooked up like a state of the art sound system inside this missile silo, and obviously turned the missile silo into like an LSD factory. And then he would blast Deep Forest, like in this missile silo. Deep Forest is like this world music band. It's like a crossover of like electronic music and like tribal music from this like pygmy tribe in Africa. So it's this like cool little like crossover thing where it's got like sort of Western beats, but like African tonals and African beats layered on top of it. It's just really, really cool. Nothing that I would have listened to before. This is kind of like my introduction to like world music, and that's sort of like I listen to that like quite a lot. They've got a huge discography, like 30 albums or something. So that's something that sort of challenged me in that I initially heard it on this documentary and I was like, oh shit, this is actually kind of cool, and kept listening to it, and it was just so different to everything that I was used to. So, Jack, is there any sort of band or genre that you found that sort of challenged you or was sort of way outside the norm of what you would?
I think like going anything anything post being 24 is a good mark for me there to work from, because otherwise I might be a bit lost. It seems a bit continuous, but the fucking
you gotta bound it.
I at some point realized that my musical tastes during my degree had got really fucking like just obnoxious and avant-garde and all this shit, and like to the point where like all I was listening to was the shit that you have to fucking really
so
think
you're telling
about.
me this song is in 4/4, you peasant?
Yeah, but what's the third level of your time signature, sir? You mean is 4/4/7/4/8/4? Yes. No. Yeah, lots of like atonal shit and stuff where you play it and people start long, arduous debates about. Yeah, but is it music?
Yeah.
Is it really music? So I was like, right, I'm going to get into some commercial stuff. I'm going to get into like something that I can actually enjoy around other people. But Western pop isn't really that thing for me at the moment. So I got into K-pop, but a lot of K-pop also isn't that thing for me. So there's like the kind of there's a part of K-pop with people like Dean and Zico and DPR Live and stuff that it's more hip hop influenced, and a few of them just like straight up sound like they're Usher or Neo in the 90s. So there's a lot of like R&B hip hop influence in what they're doing. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one that was a proper departure. And then earlier this year, not as much of a departure because I've always liked funk, but I've just got massively into Tower of Power this year.
Yeah, Tower of Power are sick.
Yeah, they fucking slam.
Only so much hole in the ground, baby. What a banger.
True. I mean, K-pop for me would definitely be a departure from the norm. Well, what about you, Adam?
I'll send you some stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if I can think of anything recently that I would say has been like, oh, this has been a challenge and a new thing. I would probably say like my musical consumption has been piss poor this year. So I don't know if I have anything to contribute, at least at the time of asking. But I do have a question for you, if that's okay, before we wrap this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm curious. So we were debating about, say, at least for me and Jack being like, musicians, and you not. There's a different approach. Like we would have that ear in terms of like always trying to analyze, at least more when we were younger. What we were talking about earlier. I'm curious if now that we are doing reviews and we're doing this podcast, has your actual approach to listening changed in terms of when you're listening to music now? Instead of just having the enjoyment now, are you critically analyzing things because now your brain's used to being like, oh, I'm doing reviews. I've got to listen to the elements. Now, is that happening for things that you're personally enjoying more?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Because us doing like these reviews, you guys bring like insights that I like. I'm just like, wow, I never even, this wasn't even going through my mind when I was listening to this. And so like, yeah, like for instance, you'll talk about sort of the chord progression, and you might go into sort of like, yeah, in the, I think it was it in the Megan Thee Stallion where you made an offhand comment where, oh yeah, this song just has a standard 3-chord progression and I can hear that. I can't hear that. I can't discern. I don't have that ear to be able to discern. Oh, this chord is going from here, and this chord is going to here. And that's actually that's a training that I was trying to do. Interval training, basically, so that I can sort of pick things out easier. So I can pick those transitions out easier in a song. I guess that's like sort of the basics of learning a song by ear rather than learning a song by tab. It's like one of the basic skills that you have. But I would say that part of listening to a song is less developed in me than it is in you guys. But yeah, I have found that so on my first listens, I'll always listen to it sort of as I listen to it, and I'll just sort of I'll listen to sort of like how I feel when as the song is playing, any thoughts that come to mind that just spring to mind as a song is playing.
Yeah.
And then on successive
I would do the same. Yeah.
And then on successive listens, I'll try and isolate certain things. I'll try and isolate like, okay, is there some hook? Is there some riff? Is there some section in this that is interesting, or that maybe I should look into more, or maybe is like a little bit outside the norm, and then I might go into like lyrics, etc.
I was going to say, just to pinpoint on one thing. I guess what I intended is to ask: has this affected things that you're listening to that we're not reviewing? Like I said, all the points you made have been interesting, but I mean specifically, that's what I'm curious about. Because say, like, while me and Jack might, listen to something for personal enjoyment, and because we're musicians, we will analyze it by default. I don't know if you'd agree, Jack, but we'd analyze the melodic and harmonic aspects just without us trying. But for you, because we're reviewing, even if you're listening to something and it's we're not reviewing it, we're not discussing it, are you now listening with a more critical ear as a result of us doing it? I guess that's what I meant.
I would say because it's hard to sort of pinpoint yes or no, because there's been because we listen to so much music for the podcast, there's been very few albums that I've listened to outside. And so the only albums I can think of that I've listened to outside is Bob Dylan's album and The Streets' new album.
Okay.
Which I did listen to that with a discerning ear, because I've got this sort of review hat on.
Right. It's changed something that you can't necessarily like get rid of. It's there as an extra element. Okay.
Yeah, it's like
one of us.
I guess it's like similar to I want to give the example, like say video games or even like working out, like workouts. Workouts is a better example. Like if you film yourself working out, you can better, and then you rewatch that. You can better. You're looking at it from a different point of view because you're reviewing it. You're not doing it in the moment. You're reviewing yourself, and you're looking at it critically. Like, oh, I'm my back isn't straight in this moment, or I get tired and my shoulders start to bowl in at this moment, or something. It's a similar sort of thing with like listening to albums, because previously I was just like listening to it, but since we started listening to it with this thing, like, oh, on Saturday I'm going to have some opinions on this.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's that pressure, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's forced me to actually be think about this critically. And I found like sometimes like I'll be listening to just like a random song, even like a song that I've heard for years, like an old Kanye song or something like that.
Yeah.
And like I'll have like an opinion, and I can almost see myself talking about it with you guys.
Yeah. But I think that's cool. I think it could be one or two. It could be you could get to this point where you're annoyed because you're like, fuck, can't I just enjoy this song superficially? But then on the other hand, I kind of, like I said, even though I'd naturally have the analytical thing no matter what, I do get it. Like sometimes, like say if I've like upgraded equipment, or I'm like, I'm playing something really loud, or I've got new headphones, I'll be like, oh, I'm hearing this element I haven't heard before, and that's like, oh, cool, I've like rediscovered this song. So I'd imagine potentially might be a similar thing for you in terms of, say, for me that would happen through like having better equipment or listening more intently. You're just going to have that through that, but you might hate it and want to strangle us for it, but
no. I mean, I got the exact same thing when I got the Audio Technicas.
Yeah,
because I was literally like listening. I remember listening to "Yumi Said" by Mos Def.
Oh, I love that song.
And there's chimes in the background.
Yeah,
I've never heard.
Yeah. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's cool when it's like I've listened to something years or whatever, and you're like, only now I'm hearing this. That's a goosebump feeling to me.
Most
cool. Nice. Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think we've been going for quite a while.
Cool.
I feel like we've gone over a whole choice of topics that we can pivot back to and give their own episodes as well.
It's definitely gone beyond, I guess, the original title, but again, I guess it's food for thought for future episodes.
This could easily turn into a 3-hour discussion.
Yeah.
Right. Any final thoughts, guys?
Buy a missile silo. That's what I've learned.
That is the move.
And lots of LSD.
That is the move.
Yeah. If you want to get into house, you're going to need to be off your face.
Yeah.
Is what I heard in Dennis's story.
Yeah, definitely need some speed and some Molly and some LSD for sure. Right, thank you very much for listening to us. If you have any comments, we're on YouTube, so leave your comments down below. Of course, we're around the same age in our late 20s, early 30s, so obviously our sort of appreciation of this topic would be different to if you were slightly older. So if you are older, and yeah, share with us your experience of how your musical taste has changed.
Leave a comment, yeah.
Also,
just
if
one
you're
last...
sorry, if you're 14, find your best song now because it's going to be that for the rest of your life. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Find a good one.
if you're 14, stop listening to three old men comparatively. I was just going to say, just to wrap it up, for anyone watching, I was just going to fill people in on what we're going to do next weekend. We're just going to review the latest King Gizzard album. So look out for that this coming weekend.
KG, it's called.
Yeah.
That's it, right. Thank you very much for watching, for listening.
Peace.
See ya.
Later.